everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Life After Kids with Doctors Brooke and Lynne. I'm Dr. Brooke.
And I'm Dr. Lynne.
Thank you for joining us today.
We're talking about a topic that if it's not already something that's affecting you, it surely will. Coming up as a woman in midlife. We're talking about perimenopause, menopause in general, some of the symptoms, and specifically
the weight gain.
Why does that happen?
Oh, it's so frustrating. This is a topic that somebody wrote. We did a poll in our Instagram story about what topics you wanted to hear about. And somebody asked for us to speak about this. So that's why this came up.
Real. It's, we talk about this stage of our life being the perfect storm, and menopause certainly plays a big piece of that. Why we would call that, because, I was just sitting here earlier saying, gosh, based on my cycle, I think my brain fog is maybe my estrogen has dropped, because it does that at our age. And just having some awareness around what is exactly happening in your body. We're not going to go to a deep level with it, but we're going to give you some really practical, knowledge around what you need to know so you can plan for it if you haven't reached menopause, and then just some support and help for weight gain in particular.
Yes.
If you are going through menopause.
Yes. I think this is a struggle for so many of us. And I shared a couple weeks ago, it was actually during this time of us podcasting together or recording together about my trouble with my abdomen in the comment. But I think for many of us, it's the weight gain in the abdomen that you just can't, everything. It feels like in this season of life, everything that you used to do to keep your weight in check doesn't work anymore.
I hear that a lot. Right?
I hear so many women say, I'm not doing anything different, nothing different. And yet I'm putting on this weight. So it gets really
your body
frustrating.
Is doing something different.
Right.
It's not making as much estrogen.
Right. Yes. Newsflash. Yeah. Yeah. All the hormones are dropping.
Difference. Yeah. So I think the best place to start is just with a tip of, okay, if you are noticing that and you're one of these fortunate people, because I know these people that they've never had to exercise a day in their life and they're just thin and beautiful. Good for you, by the way.
Why do you look like you hate those people?
I know. I'm just going to say that's really not what we talk about. Like, good for you. Like, that's amazing. Celebrate.
It is actually for real. Really good for you. That is awesome. Not good for you.
Exactly. But if you are not that person and you have not been exercising, you are noticing some changes in your body, now is the time to start. As a general rule, you're going to want to start to move your body in some way. We've done previous podcast episodes on just that alone, talking about different ways to move your body and the importance of exercise and so forth. So refer back to that. I don't think you need us to tell you that. No, really. But if you've not thought about that lately, if you need that extra kick, if you need just the reminder,
sometimes you need the reminder.
Yeah.
I mean, we almost every episode,
like, they're talking to me.
Yeah.
Then we're talking to you.
Right. We are talking to you, actually. Yeah. I mean, we almost every episode somewhere along the line, move your body comes up. So you've heard us say it a million times, but maybe not in reference to keeping your hormones healthy. And it's true.
Yeah. Moving
your body will help that. It will help with weight gain, but it'll help with your hormones too. I mean,
absolutely.
If nothing else, stress management and keeping cortisol down.
Yes.
So, I think that's an important thing. And by the way, we've also talked about perimenopause and menopause, and we've talked about weight gain. This is not a new topic of discussion for us. So if you want more, go back and look at some of the previous episodes as well.
Yeah, I think for me this time around, it's more prevalent because I am noticing more of those symptoms. And I think previously it was, you had that experience. How did you go before? How are you younger than me and you go before me in all of these different areas?
It's because I know, right? And it's so funny because when I'm talking about it, when I'm going through it, you're like, you can't be bothered. It's no big deal, right? Like, I don't have anything to say about that. Whatever. And then all of a sudden you hit it and now it's a topic of discussion.
Hopefully you don't think that. I don't actually mean, by the way, like, I don't tell you to suck it up, but
no, you did. And you said that, not me. I'm not teasing you there.
Can I take that back?
I actually just said that to you, I think yesterday. I was being a little bit snarky because we had a long day of filming and I was hungry. I get hangry. I know this, like I have to really watch myself because I know I can get mean when I'm hungry. And anyway, you were sharing something about, that's your story to tell, but just loosely, you were sharing something about premenopause and not sure like what you were going to do and how you were feeling. And I was basically like, what, like seriously, you have one headache because you were saying you have a headache. I'm like, I have been dealing with this for like 10 years, but not only the headaches, the palpitation, the anxiety, the not sleep, the hot sweats, the night or the night sweats and the hot flashes. And that was very mean to me. That was not nice because we all go through things differently. But to your point of why am I there first? A lot of it, I do think it has a bit of a genetic component. And I've said this before on podcasts, my grandmother was done with her periods and in menopause at 37.
Wow.
My maternal grandmother and my mother at 43. Not that that's necessarily healthy, but my point is that on my maternal side of the family, we go through this on the earlier side.
Earlier side. Yeah. And there is always something to say about genetics, and lifestyle always pulls
Yes.
the trigger and always trumps it. But in that case, you're going to be predisposed to starting early. And I think that was something when I was preparing for this, I did just a little bit of research, and I think it was something that was eye-opening. Did you know that Mount Sinai, so the hospital system, has the average age for perimenopause between 40 and 44. So in my mind, that would be early. So I'm almost 50, and I feel like I'm still cycling fully. Pretty much I've missed a few periods. So I'm definitely in perimenopause now, but I feel like it's really just been maybe 2.5 years that I have arrived here. So I'm more on the late side of average. And so I think it's really good to know, because a lot of our listeners have shared that menopause takes them by surprise. I
Mhm.
mean, I'm a doctor and I know what menopause is. I'm a woman, but you don't know until you know, I think, on some of the just anything in life until you're really facing it. You don't know all the nitty gritty,
Yes.
right?
Right. And I'm glad that you're saying this because for me, and I love that 40 to 44. And that also means though that you can start into this at the age of 37,
Absolutely.
sometimes
Because that's just
35.
the average
It's just the
age.
average. So you can start. And what happened to me is I mean, I've been dealing with this. What am I? I can't remember how old I am. Am I 48?
Yeah,
I'm turning 48.
48.
Well, okay. Anyway, it's been over 10 years that for this to initially start. And I remember when it was all starting, I was worried there was something wrong with me. And I talked to a
Sure,
couple of my
because you look
friends
so young.
that were
You never
right.
suspected menopause.
Yes, and I talked to a couple of my friends that were older and they're like, "Brooke, you're way too young. Like that is definitely not premenopause." I was like, "Well, then what is it?" And then I saw like PCP and other doctors and same thing, "No, you're too young." And I said, "Well, my grandmother was done at 37 and my mother," and then when they heard that, they're like, "Oh, well, maybe you're on the early side." And then they started to say, "Okay, well, maybe we should do some testing and see." But had I not been my own advocate and pushed for that, I would have just been blown off that you're way too young. And now here I am, 48, and I'm just about like I've just said to you, I have like 4 more months and I'm officially done if I
You're
make
so
it.
excited. 10 years
Otherwise,
later.
the worst is when you get to that phase and like it's been maybe
Mhm.
3 or 4 months and you're like, "Oh my gosh, this
And then
is
you
it."
have
And then you get a
period.
period and you're like, "Damn it, I got to start all over again."
Yes, because the true definition of menopause is when you go
A year.
a year
Right.
without cycles. So, yeah, perimenopause, it's going to start with, changes. You're going to notice changes in either your flow or the length of the cycle. And of course, this is all a natural process, and it's being, initiated because the ovaries are gradually now stopping working in perimenopause and they're shutting down fully in menopause. So therefore, those cycle lengths and flow can be irregular and different for
Right.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And there's so many different things that can come up, and some of it's like, not I don't want to say odd, but
We've
not
talked
things that
about
we talk about that can
irregular
bring.
symptoms of
Right.
menopause. And I wonder if some of that, like, so going back, I did a very popular post on that. And a lot of women shared about the different, like, dizziness and
Mhm,
vertigo. And, for me, some of it was stress related. And I'm
mhm.
sure there was estrogen cycling and dips and things like that. But also, I noticed that the stress played a big role in it. I think now in where I'm at as far as perimenopause, um, you're going to start to see more of those common symptoms, which we all know about, but there is a stage. So there are stages. Did you know that?
Mhm.
According to the Cleveland Clinic. So
Yep.
you sort of move through them, with those irregular periods, skip periods being first,
Yep.
and then more or less bleeding than usual. And that
Yep.
can kind of come concurrently. And then the hot flashes,
Yep.
and then the vaginal dryness, frequent urination. I hope some people can skip that, me being one of them, but I don't think so. I think it's just all a part of it because
I didn't have any issues with that.
so interestingly, I don't know if this is TMI, but my dog had, we had the dog fixed and she has some, leaking from the
Since
bladder.
then, because she's
Yes,
when you
because she's
the
menopausal.
hysterectomy,
Yep.
you go into
So
early
the doctor
menopause.
says, some estrogen, some progesterone can help them with that. But
Wow,
we have
interesting.
so far.
Yeah, I
we've
didn't
got
have any
that.
issues with that.
No. So, and then sleep problems and mood changes.
Yes, in that order, is that what you mean?
That's
That's
what
typical.
the Cleveland Clinic says in that.
I
think
I
everybody's
don't
different.
like when there's a cookie cutter, really,
know.
because it didn't happen necessarily for me that way. I do think that I hear from most women that I've worked with or that I know, and for me, the progression at least was maybe start to get more irregular and then heavier periods and then lighter periods and then more and more irregularity. But for me, the hot flashes and night sweats were sporadic
been
and the
there.
sleep was always in it. Like it didn't necessarily go in those stages. Not maybe, but maybe that's most people. I mean, it's Cleveland Clinic, so maybe, I don't know. But and I know women who are have been in menopause for years and still get hot flashes and night sweats.
Yeah.
That's a big deal for many women, even after they've been done for a
Well
long
done,
time.
menopause.
Yep.
Yeah. So I would tend to agree with you too. And I think that like everybody is so different.
Yeah.
Starting with the age of onset and into the symptoms, but
Right.
just something to be.
Yeah. It's
aware of.
definitely an interesting thing to think about.
All right. So let's move into the weight gain piece.
Okay.
So what happens, of course, is if you're in perimenopause, your estrogen is fluctuating, right? So we're not as effectively modulating our hunger hormones.
Yeah.
So menopausal women or perimenopausal women experience more intense hunger signals, and that leads to often more increase in food intake and then weight gain. And that's the National Institutes of Health. So that was interesting for me because I have had a lot of cravings lately, and I'm just like, you got to have something, and it's either usually salty or sweet. And I think some of that is normal, but those things coincide with your cycle when you
Yep.
were cycling.
Yep.
That intensity before your period, right? Where it's just like,
Yeah,
all the chocolate.
Yes. Or all the chips in my
All the
case. I love
chips.
salty. I do love
Yes.
chocolate though too. I love them both together.
Can we have you seen the chocolate chips?
What?
Yeah.
I
have
mean,
not
I've seen
tried
chocolate
them.
chips,
No,
but what are we
I'm
talking
sorry.
about?
They're potato chips that are dipped in
Oh,
chocolate.
see, yeah, that's right up my alley. And if you can't give me that, just give me some
Chocolate.
salted dark chocolate and I'm happy.
Right. Just the salt and the sweet. I love it.
It's right. Well, so the other thing is, so you're talking about the cravings leading to the weight gain. The other piece to that, did I miss you saying this about the estrogen in our bodies needing to produce more of it? Did you hit that?
No, go ahead.
So the other thing is when you're premenopause and into menopause, before that time, the reason you were cycling is because your ovaries are making estrogen. Well, your ovaries are going to stop output of their hormones, but your body still needs estrogen. And if you are notoriously low on estrogen, you're not getting enough. One of the ways that it makes, one of the other places where you can get estrogen made is, I hate to say this, but fat cells.
Yes.
And if you don't have enough fat on your body, if you are too thin for your body or you're just thin in general or whatever it is, very often your body will start to deposit fat so that you have enough
Around the midsection.
estrogen, and that's typically around the abdominal area.
Yeah.
And that's why, sometimes honestly, try as you might, you just can't. And by the way, it might not be necessarily a good thing for you to have a completely flat stomach because your body might need that. You might need a little bit of that to have enough estrogen. Right. Like I've talked to friends, and not like not to say, I don't want to get into the conversation about weight and body shaming, none of that stuff, but all that I'm going to say is that this is a health conversation, right?
Yes.
So when we look at it from a health perspective, we need to maintain a healthy weight. So whatever that is for you, I'm just saying, I have conversations with friends that ease my mind. Like, you should be proud of the way your body looks, because just know that your body's doing what it needs to keep you healthy and keep your hormones as balanced as possible.
Right.
And you don't necessarily want to fight at that.
Yeah.
Too
There's
much.
something to be really celebrated about your body's natural adaptive processes that we don't stop and think about enough. When we have a fever, that's a beautiful adaptive response to your body raising its temperature to kill off bugs that will die at a higher temperature than normal blood temperature. So that's one. And then also the depositing of fat, because fat cells are estrogenic. They
Yep.
make estrogen. And so it's a really good point. You need to have a balance of, appreciating it, I guess, with also knowing if it's more than too much. So that's where the standards like the BMI, like those things are
Right.
not perfect, because if you're a super tall woman with a lot of muscle, that BMI, it's not meant for you. But in general, if you're an average,
Right.
you know, person, you can get some information from the BMI.
Yep.
And if you're within a range that says it's healthy for your age,
Mhm.
which by the way, it does go up as we age.
Yeah.
Then I guess do the things from a health standpoint, but maybe don't worry about it or do as many intense interventions.
Right. And also, on the flip side of that, if you are carrying around excess fat on your body and it's too much for your body, there's a flip
Too
side to
much
that where your
estrogen.
body's making too much estrogen. And now you're in a thing called estrogen dominance, which is a whole nother
Yeah.
issue.
Right. And more physical symptoms and
Right.
yeah, not.
Which we don't need to unpack all that. I'm just
No,
throwing it out there just so that you're aware that that is
you need a
a thing
healthy,
too. There needs to be the
fat
right
distribution.
balance for
Mhm.
your body. We're all
Yeah.
different.
Yeah. Okay. So, but I do, going back to that hunger single thing, that's really good, because when you can sit there and think, you're basically your midbrain is telling you, I'm hungry, I want chocolate. But when you know this, when you know that, oh, I'm at a place in my cycle where am I really hungry? Is what you need to stop and ask
Mhm.
yourself. Is this really what I want, or do I need water? Am I just sitting here bored? Like
Yeah.
what exactly is happening here? And if you are going to eat, because chances are, if it's something being stimulated, you're craving something. You need something, right? Maybe drink some water with electrolytes first, because it could be that salt,
Yes.
right? When we cycle, we do lose a lot of our salts
Right.
through fluids and so forth.
Right.
So
We need extra hydration during that
extra
time.
hydration and more
And
nutrient dense foods,
yes, and
more
it
protein.
mhm. And in particular, I'm sorry, I kept trying to cut you off and I didn't mean well,
Nope.
anyway, but to your point about the electrolytes, right? If you are craving like chocolate, but maybe it's that you need some
Is
hydration.
that why you have chocolate electrolytes?
I
Oh,
think of all the
see,
things.
I get it now, because I've tried them and I'm like, because also it's like brown water.
Yeah, it looks like
Because
it.
it's the color of chocolate, and so it's a little bit like unappealing
It
to look at.
is.
But I get it now.
If you put it in a Stanley or like a Yeti or
Yeah,
something, you won't see
then
it.
you can't see it.
But also that the flavor is a little more bland than like if you put a whole packet of raspberry in a
It's
cup,
true.
it's like,
Too
whoa, too
much.
much. But the chocolate, you need more than usual to
It's
get the
not quite
taste.
as salty.
Right. So this
So
is a brand called
yes.
LMNT. And I don't love, I think a full pack for me is a little too much sodium, too much electrolyte. So I like to do about a half a pack through the course of my day. I sip on it all day. But they have all different flavors and sweetened with stevia. So you get a little sweet too. So if you're just a sweet tooth and it's just hydration, this is a great way to curb that and also get your hydration. But they do have a chocolate salt. And around the holidays, they have a salted caramel
Oh,
and a mint chocolate.
great way for cravings.
Yes.
Actually, I don't have that written down, but that's a perfect thing to stop cravings.
Yes, and they recommend, like, around the holiday, they put out cute holiday, like, they do great marketing,
So
but
smart.
putting it in, like, some hot water for, like, a hot cocoa type
Oh,
sipping, yeah.
I love it. I
So,
love it.
anyway, just food for thought.
I love it. Okay, so some other ways to stop weight gain. And I just spoke to this a little bit, but we'll just start a list here. More nutrient dense foods. So always, if you're going to be having things like vegetables that have higher, nutritional value and fiber and
Yep.
things that are going to get in your stomach and expand, maybe some complex carbs, some really, if you can tolerate that, some really good breads like Ezekiel bread or seed breads, things that have a lot of nutrients and that are going to sit in your stomach and really sort of digest slowly, because they're going to keep you feeling fuller
Yep.
longer. Also protein. So we've talked about a lot about this, but we need more protein as we age. We're losing muscle faster than we did when we were younger, right? Because we're always building and losing, building and losing.
Yes.
Same with bones, same with a lot of things in our bodies.
Yes.
It's a deposits and withdrawals type of situation. right?
Yes, and none of us get I'm convinced that most women our age in this season of life do not get enough protein.
No.
And it's just is so important to keep your blood sugar balanced and keep you from getting hungry in
It's
2 hours after
hard
you've
to get a
eaten.
lot of protein
It
too,
really
unless
is.
you're gonna sit down and gnaw on a whole chicken breast and then,
Yeah.
just egg whites, and because it's difficult to get the amount of protein that you need and not balance it with like too
Yeah.
much fat or carbohydrate at the same time to where you would gain weight,
Right.
like all the egg yolks and
It's tough. This is where I really like my protein powders.
yes.
And then they can be we both use sweetened like a chocolate and or a vanilla. And so you get your sweet tooth there too, but it's protein. So it's
Yes.
not like if you get sick of the chicken breast or the whatever it is that you're eating. So
It's got better flavor.
and like last night after dinner, we had some of that coconut probiotic cream where you could just
Yes.
do a yogurt and put a half of a scoop of the protein. So you're
Love it.
getting some protein and it's
You
making it
can
chocolatey and sweet.
You
It's
can add
delicious.
protein powder to almost
Just
anything.
about anything. I've
Yeah.
learned that from Lila and you.
Yes. Lila does a lot of baking with protein.
Yep.
You can make energy bars like the ones that you don't
Yep.
bake and mix up. It's like a flour, honestly. So anything that, gives that consistency of like
Yes.
thickness to things. And anything you can add protein in, go ahead and do it. And that's what having collagen around is good for, because it's not as high in protein, but then also you want to get a good protein powder as well that we're always on
Yeah.
the lookout for.
Absolutely. Those are great ways to make additions, but don't discount. That's probably the most important thing I could say about this
So
conversation.
good.
And not only that, so let me just backtrack for 1 second. Not only is it important for your weight, but protein, amino acids is also the backbone of our hormones.
Yes.
So if we don't have enough amino acids, if we're not getting enough of it in our diet and we're already starting to decrease the output of our hormones, we're really screwed. Sorry
Right.
for my words, but it's true. Like that's really important.
Yeah,
And
because our bodies are still going to make estrogen and progesterone. They're just going to be made from our adrenal glands now and not from our
yep. Or
ovaries
our fat cells, as we
or
said.
our
But
fat
the
cells.
more that we can feed our body and stimulate it to
The
produce that, the
precursors.
better. So
Yeah.
protein here, and I'm sorry, I'm sidetracking you, but just let me just got a couple thoughts here that I want to say about it. Number one, there can be two problems there. You're not getting enough. We already touched on that. Number two, you're getting enough, but you're not breaking it down to the amino acids that your body needs to make the hormone. So if that's the case for you, if you have any digestive distress or a lot of women, here's the problem. A lot of women don't eat enough protein because they know that when they do, it bothers them. They don't
Mhm.
necessarily feel great. They might not have
They
pinpointed it
don't
even to it
digest
that
it as
it's
well.
protein. They just subconsciously. So that's where you might need some digestive enzymes. I can link some of those in the show notes.
It's great.
And that will help break it down. But you can also get amino acid powder and just supplement here and there
To get
with
the full profile of amino
yes, and
acids.
if you're having just a little bit of protein at your meal and you
Yeah.
need more and to help it all absorb, drink some amino acid protein. I love Keon. I can link that as well, and it's in
Yes.
our Amazon shop.
That's great. I have that as well. I need
Yep.
to remember that. All right. Also, so these are not only great ways to stop weight gain in perimenopause and menopause. I mean, these really are truly for your daughters as well,
Yeah,
your
in general.
sons, anybody in general of any age, but especially for, those of us in menopause because we're, fighting that a little harder,
Yep.
as you said. More good fats. So that would be the next thing on our list. So good fats are omegas. They are fats that are going to, again, they're part of the building blocks of our
Yep.
hormones. And, they're also going to satiate us and make us feel full.
Keep us from
Fats
snacking.
have a
Stop.
higher caloric density,
Yeah.
keep us from snacking.
Yeah, because it stops the blood sugar from going up and down. And we could have a whole conversation about that because when blood sugar goes up, your body releases cortisol, which is your stress hormone, to bring it back down. And that throws the estrogen and progesterone off even more. So when your estrogen goes up, or sorry, cortisol goes up, the estrogen can tank or vice versa. More can drop to bring that down. And then you
Mhm.
get that. Sometimes
Whoa.
we get like how you were saying you notice that your estrogen is whatever spiking or tanking. It could be because it initially started with your blood sugar went and then your
Mhm.
cortisol went and then the estrogen went.
Got it.
So just
Which
to keep that
actually,
more balanced.
funnily enough, that's happened because,
Yeah,
I was ill yesterday. So my eating has been just a little bit off in my
right.
rhythms. Yeah.
So
Funny.
we can get to a point where we might not have been sensitive to the blood sugar swings before, but now that we're in premenopause, it's much more noticeable. So we have to keep that in check. And a great way to do that is by good fats with every meal or snack.
Yeah. Love that. I also have on here, start with hot water and lemon. And I think that's just to set up your stomach for, um, I mean, I think lemon is
It's good for anything.
detoxifying
Yep.
and just helps
It's
prepare
hydrating.
it's hydrating and helps fill you up a little bit.
Yep.
So maybe before you eat a meal,
Hmm.
start with some hot water, especially I think it's the temperature that not everybody's does well with that,
Yep.
but I actually don't do great with real cold water.
Me
Actually do
neither.
much
I don't
better with
like cold
hot
water,
water.
actually.
Yeah,
I prefer to sip on just room
I know.
temperature.
I know. So starting with that, and then also lowering caffeine. That's a big one
It's a huge one relating back to the cortisol.
because it's going to drive up our cortisol, cause offsets in our blood sugar.
Hmm.
And then also some people find intermittent fasting really beneficial at this
Yes.
age. So making sure we're eating with inside of a window and that we're not, snacking all day long, right? Talk about your intermittent fasting schedule.
So I got myself into a pickle here, and I expand on almost all of this in our course, the modules that we have in the membership community, just so you guys know if you need a deeper dive. And we should also by now have them. If you don't want to join the community, you can get them on our website. But
Right.
so I do anyway, there's way more information that we have for you if you need it. But with intermittent fasting, I got myself into a pickle because when I was still cycling, even though I was premenopausal, I was intermittent fasting too much, and it caused too much stress in my system, too much cortisol, and it actually made things worse for me. I think it threw my thyroid off a little bit. Women have to be really careful with too much intermittent fasting if you're not already in menopause, because it can be detrimental to your thyroid gland. And that's another piece to this with weight gain. Sometimes it's that with the hormones fluctuating and us going into premenopause, it's actually a thyroid thing. Everything is
Mhm.
so closely connected. So if you're as your ovaries and start to cool off and the adrenals are taking over, the thyroid gland can get a little messed up, which is your metabol, right? The big gland for metabolizing. So anyway, just be careful with too much intermittent fasting. But for me, I backed off of it and stuck to pretty much like a 12 to 13-hour fast daily. That was pretty safe for me, and I operated well in that space. So I would stop eating around 7, sometimes 8, because I eat later in the day, a little
Yep.
different than you. And then I wouldn't eat again until 8 or 9. Wasn't that hard, just a little bit of a later breakfast. And then every once in a while, I would do maybe a 14 or a 15-hour fast.
Okay.
Now, as I mentioned, I'm almost on the other side, and I'm finding that I can
Go
go longer and more frequently, and it's actually feels better for me.
Okay. So listening to your body.
Yep.
I love that.
Yep.
And we can also be eating foods that are estrogen promoting during the right time of our cycle.
Yes.
And that's really important because, again, if your body is, putting weight around your stomach, it's prepping you to make estrogen from those cells. So if we're providing some of that estrogen promoting foods, like you can speak to some of those at the right time in the cycle
Mhm.
when you're, initially the first half,
Yep.
say, then that just works with your body instead of against your body and
Absolutely.
helping it to make estrogen.
Yeah, so things like cruciferous vegetables, so broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, walnuts, pumpkin seeds, sweet potatoes, chickpeas, hummus. I mean, I've put posts up about flaxseed.
Yeah.
All of these things are really
Yeah.
nourishing in hormones. They're
Would maca powder fall under that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, maca too is great. I put that in a smoothie every day.
Great.
That has I mean, I feel so much better than I have felt in years. But I can't pinpoint one specific thing
Right.
because I do so many things. But I will say that I feel like things shifted for me when I started doing the maca powder in my smoothie every day.
Mm. I just ordered some of that, so I'm excited.
Yeah, I think you're gonna. So I'll just give you kind of a, if you don't mind, or we can save this if you want to move on to something. I don't want to derail you.
I think I'm done.
So I just was going to speak to just briefly kind of my setup through my day now and my eating habits.
Yeah.
Maybe that's helpful. It might not be for everyone, but I do days now where I don't eat breakfast or I won't eat until maybe 11, sometimes even 12. That feels really good for me. That's not something you probably want to jump right into. You'd have to build to that. But whatever the case, my first meal is almost always a smoothie. And the smoothie is protein powder. So I'm getting enough protein. The smoothie is my maca powder so that I'm getting the support for my hormones. I put prebiotic fiber in there so that it keeps me full and I don't need to eat right away.
Do you still use green banana fiber?
No, I moved on to something else and I have it linked in our
Great.
Amazon shop. It's got Jerusalem
Jerusalem
artichoke. It's got banana flour in it, but it's got 3 different types of fiber. So I have that in it. I put walnuts in it for some more nourishment and also good healthy fats. Walnuts are high in ALA, which is an omega. And then what am I missing? I put some inositol for blood sugar balance, and I put a little bit of magnesium because anxiety was part
Mhm.
of the premenopause thing for
Yep.
me. So I have
Some calming,
a
the calming
magnesium.
effects of that.
Yes, that, and it's got some L-theanine in it too. So
Mhm.
so I get the calming, I get the protein, I get the fiber to keep me full, I get the fat to keep me full and feed my hormones,
Yep.
and I get the walnut, which is also feeding. So it's just, I feel like that is a great way to start the day, and that keeps me full sometimes till dinner. I
Mm.
mean, that's a great way if you're in premenopause and you're asking us how to manage your weight. Number one, it's going to fill you up. It'll keep you from snacking. It's sweet. It meets that sweet craving. I bounce between chocolate and vanilla. And then number two, it's got all the things in it to feed your hormones. So that is something I highly, highly, highly recommend.
That's
It's
great.
been
You
so good for
should
me.
do a reel for us. And again,
Yeah,
everything
I've
you've
done
done
it
it.
before. I don't, it doesn't seem like, anyway, I can definitely do that again. And I actually will put the
Or
recipe in the membership community.
yeah, there you go. That's
For
excellent.
sure. And then the other thing is I would say that has helped me tremendously is I keep my carbs very low through the day. As far as weight management, when
Mhm.
we're talking about this, I keep my carbs super low through the day. So that smoothie I just mentioned really doesn't have any carbs at
Mhm.
all, not much. And then I save my carbs for my evening meal, my dinner meal. A, because it's something for me to look forward to. I don't feel like I need to get it all in because I know it's coming. So I'm looking forward to it. B, it fills me up then and satisfies me. So I'm not snacking ongoing in
Yep.
the evening after my meal. And I believe for sure that it helps me sleep better too because the carbs satisfy me and keep me in a deeper sleep longer.
Great.
So those are just a couple small tips that have really worked for me. But I'm going to tell you, if you're worried about abdominal fat, it's over excess eating for sure of carbs and not enough protein.
Mhm. Yep.
I
Yep.
think that's a simple,
Yep. There are
and
some
don't
hard
be
and
afraid of eating
fasts.
good fat,
Right.
you know?
Up your
And
protein, up your good fats, decrease
yes,
your carbs is probably your best formula.
I think that's right. And the carbs that you do eat, they should be more like root
Whole.
vegetables,
Yep.
whole carb. Now, you mentioned like Ezekiel bread, which will be great for some. Me, if I ate that, my blood sugar would be all over the place all day. I can't. It's just it doesn't. I can't do. I think
It's
you
not,
tell
I'm
her that
about
way
to, well,
better.
I don't know. I'm about to start wearing a blood sugar
A glucose monitor, yeah.
blood glucose monitor, for a month. And I'm going to find out. And that's another way to know for sure because everybody's a little different.
Yeah. So for
I'm
sure,
looking forward to the
ladies.
data that I
Yes.
get from that.
Your blood sugar is and your blood sugar balance is very closely related to how you are going to weather premenopause because
Yeah.
sometimes your blood sugar drops and it leads to a cortisol spike, which then leads to things like hot flashes
Yep.
or an anxiety attack or some palpitations. It's all related, but if you can get that balance, a lot of that will stop.
Yeah, it's great.
So anyway, I think we can end there. We good?
Yeah.
Anything else to add? That was
No,
a fun
that
conversation.
is fun. Yeah, especially if you're
Fun?
in it.
Yeah, right? Um, I
We
know, I feel
just,
like I'm finally breathing again, like getting my groove back
oh
after all
goodness.
this. Um,
Well, with the both of us, you have a whole breadth of experience here, and we have us in different things at different times. So that's
right.
what makes it, I guess, fun.
Yep. Ladies, thank you so much for joining
We're
us for
in
the
the trenches
conversation.
with you, is what I guess I was trying to say.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much for joining us. And make sure that you're following us on all the channels: Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. We've got the Life After Kids membership community. We've got the private Facebook group. We have so many resources for you beyond just the podcast. If you prefer to watch us instead of listen, you can find us on YouTube. You can go to www.lifeafterkids.com to find all the things. Definitely reach out with any questions that you have.
We
Any
love your comments.
Yes, well, we love most of your comments. Just kidding.
Yeah, don't make fun
Sometimes
of
you're a
my
little mean.
grammar.
Um,
No,
but anyway, we're just kidding. It's
overwhelmingly,
fine.
this community
It is such a
super
great
nice and
community. We
gracious. Yeah.
we cannot complain at all. We're
Mhm.
very blessed. We are treated very well. And Anyway, yes, and let us know if there's something in particular that you want to hear about. If you have more questions from this podcast, let us know that too. Whatever we can do to help, we are here for it. And good luck with staying cool and dry.
The perfect way to end.